get ready with me for a tattoo that I have later, but we're going to be talking about part 2 of Boeing Starliner issues. First of all, there's a clarification, and then 2 other issues that I did not even mention in part 1. Okay, so the clarification is the leaking was a helium leak, and that was causing issues because there's no pressure in space, of course. So as we get out of the atmosphere, the rate of leakage increases because there's no pressure to hold it in. One of the other issues that I didn't even mention was the reason that the capsule is deemed unsafe to come back is actually because they had a thruster valve issue. So the reason that they can't come back is because the thruster was misfiring in space, which is, if you remember, they had to go and do another rotation around the Earth before they could dock with the ISS because they couldn't align it correctly because the thruster misfired, and therefore they couldn't actually have the docking sequence. So what they did is they went back around the world, followed the ISS, and then when they came up on the ISS again, they actually were able to dock. So it causes thrusting issue. This is a problem when they come back because if they misfire, they can bounce off the atmosphere along with their fuel leakage issue. So lots of problems with the helium stuff. Another issue that I hadn't even mentioned in the last video was that they were using a Teflon poppet seat. They were having an issue with the Teflon poppet seat in the NTO valves, which is nitrotetraoxide, I think. It's just a common bipropellant. This is something that Aerojet Rocketdyne has been making since the 60s and 70s, and they learned back then that the Teflon is not good in high temperatures, so they just used it this time for some reason. I don't know, I don't work there, but they used it, and they had learned in the 60s and 70s that it wasn't necessarily the best thing to do, and they still used it. And so they're having issues with that because it swells when it gets hot. So amongst all the issues that they've been having, obviously they're going to stay up there for 8 months instead of 8 days, which is what I covered in the last video. But we've had a couple of other missions that have extended in this way, like Axiom 1 had some issues getting home, but it wasn't anything like this. It was never unsafe. It's just the conditions for return were never good. There was a bunch of storms and hurricanes and stuff like that. So this is kind of the first time we've had an issue where the actual astronauts cannot return home on their their vehicle they arrived in, right? I really am curious as to which astronauts SpaceX and NASA are going to decide not to send on Crew 9 so that there's space for Butch and Sunny. I personally would not be surprised if this is Boeing's last flight. Personally, I don't know, right? Nobody can ever know, but I know that at least if I was an astronaut or if I was somebody working on this, I would really want to have some evidence that they are changing their ways and making sure that the astronauts are going to be safe in the future or only fly on SpaceX. Honestly, that seems like a good idea right now. Maybe someday there will be a movie about this, just like there is, Apollo 11. They'll be like, oh, the great disaster of the Boeing Starliner in 2024. Thanks for watching. I will be making more of these.